our next segment is brought to you by Genco Legal. Genco Legal plays Legal Moneyball, a revolutionary data-driven approach to identify a business's key legal risks, making sure that dollars are spent on lawyers that are never wasted. And Brian Rotella, CEO of Genco Legal and creator of Legal Moneyball, is here to talk to us about the future of data security. Welcome back, Brian.
Good morning.
So glad you're here. So what are your thoughts on the future of data security?
Oh, that's a loaded question. Emily, I think that what's wrong with data right now is the term itself. For regular folks in America, data, when you say it, can be a scary term. They start thinking of DeLoreans and gigawatts and time machines. And what we don't realize, and with what I do with Genco and working with all these businesses, I am so confident by 2022, the next time we're in a midterm election, your identifiable data and de-identified data, those two terms, remember those terms, identifiable, de-identified, are going to be household terms that every American's going to know.
So can you explain them? Just
Absolutely.
briefly?
We heard it here first.
Yeah.
Yeah. So in healthcare, which I spend a lot of my time in, but our company works with a lot of different types of companies, there's a law called HIPAA. HIPAA's a Rubik's Cube, I've always said. It's something that people kind of understand, they don't, they play around with it. But the basics of HIPAA are protected healthcare information. What is that? That is identifiable healthcare information about you. Your driver's license, your name, your social security, your picture, your likeness. What's de-identified? General things about maybe your background, your health background, your eye color, your tendency towards particular conditions. That's de-identified. And with this whole debate that's been going on with Facebook and everything else, what has concerned me is no one's really spelled out that difference. I personally think that our world will be a better place as we use de-identified data to help people, to get down to what a particular group might find more successful for a healthcare treatment, what a particular group might need, and I think we're going to talk about it for transportation if they can't get to the doctor with what Uber Health's doing. The concern is if you're putting out identifiable information on social media, or if Uber's getting identifiable information, the stuff we talked about, should they be able to do something with that? In the healthcare world, that's a big no-no.
Well, but in the case of Facebook and Cambridge Analytica, this is turning out to be a big no-no, too, where it was identifiable information. Absolutely,
Carrie. It was like a psychological analysis. And healthcare, where we've gotten, and I'm going to play the moderate line here after your last segment, I think that one of the biggest successes from the Clinton administration 20 years ago, it's probably surprising, Carrie, that I'm going to say this, was HIPAA.
You're wearing a purple tie, so.
Hey.
That's the signifier.
We'll give you that. No, red, blue together.
I am Italian, though, so you never know. That could go with that, too. But I will tell you that with HIPAA, what the Clinton administration did is they got way out ahead of the understanding that healthcare was going to be electronic. Every time you go to the doctor or any healthcare provider, what are they doing right now? They're on tablets. They're in front of computers. The days of them writing notes, long gone. Do you know that over 75% of all healthcare providers in this country right now, your records, wherever they go, are electronic? So we got out ahead of it, and they treat those records almost to their fault as if it's like nuclear waste escaping if there's a HIPAA breach. I've worked with clients, including clients over the last month, that have had those types of security issues. It is DEFCON 1. Facebook did not look like DEFCON 1. I can tell you if that had been a healthcare company, it would have never gotten to the level of Zuckerberg in front of the Congress. And I know folks said he won or he had a good performance basically because he didn't throw up on himself. That's really what I think was his rating. In my opinion, had he been a CEO of a healthcare company, he would have been fired.
Oh, sure. You'd have a situation like Theranos, which has been completely dismantled at this point for different reasons.
Lawsuits all over that too,
Yep.
right?
Yep. So, but you touched on Uber Health. So tell our viewers, if they're not familiar, what that is and what sort of data privacy issues does it raise?
Yeah, I mean, Uber, I took Uber here. I love Uber. I don't rent cars anymore. I use Uber. Guess what, folks? Uber's getting that identifiable data from you, and they're storing it. They also had one of the largest breaches of security data that they just settled in the last 24 hours. Just settled from personal information that ended up escaping somewhere in the line of 23 million. Uber, though, is all over the place. So they've decided to do Uber Eats. I get Uber Eats all the time at my office. Now they're doing Uber Health. Uber Health, the purpose that they say for Uber Health is we want to get folks to the doctor. There is a chronic issue with people not having transportation and missing appointments. I think there's some truth to that. I also know, working in the healthcare field, that going to the doctor is a billable event. What's the number one payer for healthcare in this country?
The government.
Right. Think Uber and the government might be in on this thing? So what happens is you get a call and say, look, we really need you to come in for your follow-up visit. We can provide transportation. Do you need that? Sure.
Is that the central difference between Uber and Uber Health?
Correct.
That's
Emily.
where I was confused. So the doctor can kind of set up a ride for patients?
They are setting it up. And Lyft is doing it up right now. Lyft and Uber are doing it right now. So they are offering it as a service so that you can come back and forth from the doctor. They can get you there, and it will increase, the purpose is compliance, meaning that you will be a healthier person.
But how is that different from regular Uber? Because I take Ubers to the doctor.
But Uber doesn't call you, or let's say you were going out to the Olive Garden last night. They didn't say, hey, would you like to come in? We notice you have a reservation. We'll give you a lift.
I would like to come in. That sounds great.
All the breadsticks you want.
You got an Uber Eats, because I mean, sometimes I think I could walk to Mexico quicker than they can get me my, Baja Fresh when I'm ordering it on my lunch hour. So, I mean, that would be my one concern.
So you're saying it's the problem is that Uber would have access to your health records, and that poses a HIPAA risk.
Yeah, I mean, I just envision like it's driving Miss Daisy, but the cast of Homeland's in the front seat, and Grandma's in the back. The information they're going to have with a company that has shown not a good record for keeping this identifiable. Remember what I said: identifiable to de-identifiable. Those will become household terms in 2022. Mark it. Identifiable data they have sitting there, and the most sensitive of your identifiable data.
Right. I'm just thinking visually of your analogies right now.
Just terrified.
I
just
know,
really scared.
But here's the question. Don't you think that Uber and Lyft, the incentives are aligned to protect patient privacy? So are you wanting us to just not use technology and be in fear that somehow our data is going to be breached? I mean, at what point should we just say, no, I only want paper and pencil for my doctor.
No,
and I'm only going to walk, or I'm only going to have my personal Miss Daisy driver come and get me, and that's it.
I'm not going to walk. Just not going to walk.
Yeah, if you're sick, you can't walk.
And Carrie, if anything, I am the lawyer that hates lawyers, but I'm also the lawyer that loves data. What we do with Genco Legal Moneyball is a data-driven approach. We actually go in and look at clients, and we gather data about them and put that through a formula so we can identify their key risks so they're not wasting dollars on contract review when they need a lot of HR support. I love data. My issue is that I don't think the public has been educated on the difference between identifiable data and de-identified. Again, you know me with pop culture. Minority Report, right? The precogs? Mm-hmm. That's identifiable. We're going to that place where you walk into the Gap and they're like, hi, Miss Sheffield, how are you? Does that really bother you if they've used your identifiable data because you happen to shop at the Gap a lot? I don't know that bothers a lot of people. I don't know that it would bother me. I think where it bothers you is where it's getting to that level of sensitivity of, let's say you happen to be going to a psychiatric appointment. I think we all agree at that point, that data needs to be locked down. What is the data that needs to be treated literally like nuclear energy? That if it escapes, everybody's worried about it. And what is the data that's aggregated, like your preferences from where you shop, from where you eat, how we can use our data to help get down to your best legal risk so you're not wasting dollars? How do we get to the point where we're using data in the right way and locking down that identifiable data that everybody doesn't want to get out?
Would you say in all of your analysis, obviously, is there a company that's doing this right? Is there any sort of example that this industry can look to or clients can look to?
Emily, absolutely. I've got clients in my portfolio that work in population health, and the population health companies are working with the community health centers, They're working with groups like the long-term care centers, groups for the developmentally disabled. And what they're doing is they're gathering their information and their data, and they're creating predictive analytics. Now, that's a really fuzzy, fancy term. What's that mean? They're figuring out, hey, this person might need this extra level of care. We might be able to prevent that person from falling. We might be able to prevent that person from having some type of issue. We might be able to prevent that person from actually leaving where they're at, the residence
Sure.
where they're at.
Yeah, I mean, that's big data. I know here in New York, for example, they've used a lot of that. In other big cities, too, predictive analytics as it relates to crime. So if they can check this box, this box, this box, they know with a very strong certainty this type of crime will be committed or this type of, risk is present to a citizen or a property or even that the fire department can use this, that there will be most likely a fire will occur because these conditions have been met. So the predictive analytics, I think, could be very valuable. But I guess here's the question. From, a layperson's perspective, what can we do to protect ourselves from identified versus de-identified information? How can I ensure that it's only de-identified information that is getting out there?
I knew you were going to ask that. So I have printed out here for the screen. This is Uber's user policy. And I'm going to tell you, I'm a lawyer. It's not that long, generally. But
yeah, because Facebook's was like 500 pages.
Facebook's,
right?
yeah. Lindsey Graham held up that huge thing.
Yeah, it was like a bedtime story.
It was a bedtime story.
Yeah.
Bad bedtime story.
This is like how many pages?
This is about 20 pages.
20
But the
pages?
problem with it is that there's a page here where it says what they can do with your data and what they can't. Nobody reads this stuff. Nobody
read
reads
it.
this stuff. How many people have gone to buy a car? I check into a hotel. It's all automated now. There's touch screens for this. We need to get a lot better with businesses, and businesses including that I work with, in creating a very user-friendly way to understand how your data is being used. For years, I worked in trying to minimize liability for companies with what's called arbitration agreements, which is where certain companies want you to waive your constitutional right to a jury trial. Credit card companies do this. Nursing home companies do this.
We had Gretchen Carlson on our show talking about that's what she's working on as it relates to sexual harassment arbitration agreements.
That's a pretty big deal if you're going to waive that. And it shouldn't be in what looks like an antiquated statement. Here's stereo instructions.
So does Uber waive arbitration agreements, or does it mandate arbitration agreements?
Uber mandates, as all of them mandate right now, arbitration. And I'm not going to say that I'm against arbitration. I just think people need to know in lay person's talk. Arbitration sounds like something from Old England, right? That means you're waiving your constitutional right to a jury trial. Do you want to do that, yes or no?
I guess my question is, there's a lot of use of the word they. Is it companies that are supposed to fix this, or do we need another HIPAA that is government legislation that says consumers should get this?
That's a great question. That's $1 million question, Emily. I personally am going to say, and I'm not usually one for, even though I am wearing my purple tie for more regulation, but HIPAA worked. HIPAA worked, period. It's got its problems. We've gone overcorrected with it. But yes, with what we saw with Zuckerberg's testimony, for people who know this space, that social media needs a HIPAA-level law. They need to treat identifiable data like it's nuclear energy, and they need to be that scared if it escapes. I didn't see fear in that guy.
No, he seemed because the questions weren't that great. Some of the
He's good lawyers.
so
He was lawyered up.
basic questions.
Well, I think a lot of people raise the idea that, just like you're saying, people don't understand these contracts. The Congress didn't understand what they should be asking him, that they weren't necessarily as familiar with all of these different nuances as Zuckerberg and his attorneys would be. That, like you had said, there's an education level that simply we haven't reached
Let's
yet.
face it, the majority of Congress, too, is, my mother-in-law's age. Getting them to be able to like something on Facebook is difficult. Therefore, you're trying to ask him about a user policy? This was Fisher-Price questions for Zuckerberg. This was not an expert panel. And if they're going to go back and do this again, I'd like to see him sit up in front of an expert panel and answer some of these questions. We haven't seen that. The healthcare industry has to do that every time there's a HIPAA breach.
Could we order Uber Eats to watch that?
It may not get here, Emily.
Okay, got it.
Again, I want to make it clear.
Can
I
we
support it.
take Uber to get to this place?
Absolutely.
Okay, that's safe. Cool.
That's safe.
And for the record, Uber is not a Bold TV sponsor.
Okay, cool. Well, thank you for joining us, Brian Rotella from Genco Legal.
Thank you very much.
Great to have you.